Okay, I think we'll get things started. So welcome to the Helix webinar series. Today's session is on From Chaos to Clarity. We're going to be covering unified insights with Helix dashboard. So for those that did join yesterday, we did actually do a dashboards features update with Nikhil. So it's perfectly timed this week to be talking about dashboards again. So joining me today is Matt Lammy, our lead product manager, and we've also got Rod Harris, one of our principal customer success specialists. Some of you may have already met him on some of our workshops, and again, we will be talking about those towards the end. So before I hand over to Matt, who's going to get us started off with things, just a couple of reminders for those that are new to Zoom. You do have the Q&A section at the bottom of your screen. So if you do have any questions during our session and demo, please put them in there. And towards the end, we should have roughly around 15-20 minutes where we will go into live Q&A. So we would love to make this interactive. I know it's less slides and more demo, which is a delight for Matt because he doesn't like lots of slides. So hopefully we can make this session interactive with you today. So Matt, I'm now going to hand over to you and I'll take us to our first slide if you want to do your introduction.
Thank you, Sam. Good morning, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Matt Lambie. I'm a product manager primarily for PMC Helix Discovery. I've worked with the product from various angles over the past 15-20 years. And I'm bringing some conversation today, hopefully with Rodney, who's going to be taking over for the second half of the presentation, to look at, as the screen says, how can we deliver on our outcomes, and how can we understand the data that underpins those outcomes and those requirements? So today we're going to take a look at obsolescence as an outcome and look at building on our previous session of how we understand the context of our environment using models and services to understand which piece of the puzzle goes where in our environment and the relative impact and prioritization we may want to bring. And using obsolescence, we're going to be looking at how we can see where those pinch points may be and help with the prioritization across the environment. Next slide, please, Sam. And just a quick insight, these are the dashboards we're going to show today. It really brings together the opportunity that we have with Helix dashboards to use all of the data across the system. So whether you're looking at monitoring or AIOps, or you're looking primarily from ITSM, it's bringing all that data together into one screen to allow all of your business, whether that's operations, service management, business owners, to understand where they're at, what impact they have on their environment. And that goes from asset management, box counting, right the way through to service context, and then back down to understanding the impact with obsolescence. So at that point, if anyone has any mind, I'm going to ask Rodney to introduce himself, and then I'll steal the share, if that's okay.
Right, thanks, Matt. Yeah, I'm Rod Harris. I'm based in Perth in Australia. I've been at BMC Helix for 5 years now, and I just love dashboards. So I've been working with Matt, trying to sort of sort out some of our customers' issues with obsolescence, and we thought I'd come and help him do a demo. This is some pretty exciting stuff. Yeah, I've been around in the Remedy BMC Helix world for only about 27 years, so a little bit of experience. But yeah, I'm still excited. So looking forward to talking to you about it. Second half. Thank you.
Thanks, Rod, and thanks for the top trumps on the time served as well. So I will grab the screen off Sam, if that's okay. Can you guys see my screen?
Nothing's popped up. Yeah. Oh no, it has. Yes. Yep.
Excellent. I do apologize. I don't think any of my kids are at home on thrashing YouTube, but my internet does seem a little bit slow today. So please forgive any timeliness on the content. So the last session that I ran was looking at dashboards and how we can it was coming more from the ITOM, from the operations side. So how can we understand the context of our environments in the context of monitoring, AIOps, and this session is more around the extending that across to the ITSM side to bring together that data again to present that information in a unified fashion. So I'm going to start with one we prepared earlier. So anyone on my previous session may recognize this dashboard. It was the final dashboard we ran. It was the operational dashboard for service context. So what we've done is we've actually worked with some customers to extend this dashboard to understand from operations. Yes, I know that Apex Mobile Corporate is not at 100%. Tell me more about it. And so we've got a few services in here, not at 100%. What we've done is done a bit of a deep dive to look at that service in particular. So this dashboard has been purely extended with a cross launch. I'm going to pick Nutanix just because I like the sound of the word. And it's going to open the first of our dashboards that we wanted to show you today. What this is going to do is go across Helix and pull together what it knows about that service. And this is not working at the individual device layer, it's working from the service down layer. So this dashboard here, when we clicked that icon, that tile in the previous dashboard, it passed in the detail of which service we would like to know. This equally is a standalone dashboard. We can pick any of the services that we have in Discovery at this point, and we can cherry pick, and we may say I'm interested in Apex Banking or any of the other services that we have in this environment. Just to explain the header page, the header here is that very top level summary of what do we know right now about that environment, and this goes back forever basically. How many, what is our health score in AIOps, that big orange bar at the top, to show the continuation from the previous dashboard. The interesting stuff are these two bars below, where we start to say how many situations, AIOps, how many events, monitoring, how many incidents and changes do we have coming from ITSM. And then on the right-hand side, those last two, end of support data. Now, you may or may not be aware that end of support data gets pushed to the CMDB out of the box for the past couple of years. In this dashboard, we're actually pulling that data out of Discovery. So from a service layer, looking at a service called Nutanix, we have some awareness of what our environment is and what our status is. If you are a business person, that may be as much as you are minded to investigate on. You may be planning to say, what are those 33 end of support things? If this is one of your primary services that delivers value to your business in financial value or to your customers for reputation, you may have a concern. You may have a concern that there are some open events against this. What's the problem with my service on the AIOps side? And from a planning side, you may look to say, well, what are those 33 things? How out of date are they? What is my risk if I don't do anything? If I look at a different service, and some of our previous dashboards showed end of life with the service alignment, you may be able to say, well, Nutanix doesn't deliver us anything to our customers. We can deprioritize that over one of our more important services. But what are those 33 things? Let me know what the plan is for remediating those. And to anyone who may have noticed the drift, this is not drift management. This is Discovery seeing things changing in the environment, whether that's software versions, compute allocations, memory, and CPU counts, just things changing between scans. So it's an idea that potentially someone upgraded some software in recently, and we have that detail further down. We then had some outages. So being able to correlate things from a single screen, to bring together those operations teams, those automation teams, and those business people to understand cause and effect. So that's very much the header information. We see that a lot of our customers stop there and just want to know what's the status of my service and give me a bit more detail. We then spoke to some various teams, operations teams, ITSM teams, SACM teams, and the really geek out people who love to know as much detail as possible. And so we put some information in the dashboard. 7-day context. This is coming from operations teams. When they are looking at services that have a problem, they like to have an overview of what's been going on in the past week. And so we put together some information, AIOps, BHOM, incidents and changes, just to give an idea of what may have happened. Now, this is then filtered from the above numbers to literally in the past 7 days. So in the past 7 days, we've had some situations, we've had some events coming and going, we've had some incidents. We haven't had any planned changes. So anything that may have occurred was incidental rather than planned. And then no one's been upgrading software or anything in the past 7 days. So very much just an operational overview, quick hit, anything of interest that those guys may be interested to know about or deep dive into. From an ITSM perspective, we just want to know, is that service set up right? Are we where we've built a service, a business service or a technical service in Discovery? When that's pushed over to the CMDB, have we done the ITSM pieces? And in the example in the header bar, have we got a cost center? Have we aligned ownership to those services? Those things are the natural things for ITSM. If something occurs, we don't know who to contact in the 2 in the morning. If something occurs, we don't know who in the business to notify. So that may be of interest to clean up ITSM a little bit. And you can see there's 2 entries for the service there. We have a deleted entry and we have a live entry, a deployed CI. Again, just a bit of data quality that helps with awareness. And do I have any incidents or changes at the service CI layer? Not at the device layer, very much at the service layer. So it's to try and move from raising changes against individual CIs up to the working at the service layer. And for the geek out people, there's a bit of overkill. So here we have the header bar, breaking down those 12 changes that we've seen over time. In this case, breaking down to what were those changes, what types of changes were they, who changed stuff. So we've had 4 operating systems change on devices within this service. We've had some software versioning changes, some virtual machine changes. So a demonstration of the sort of data and the breakdown that we're seeing some customers interested in. And then going a little bit further, we've got some infrastructure is obsolete. So that's very much around operating system, making hardware. Things are out of date. We've got some software, not too bad. I do apologize. We have a duplicate. That's my typo. But hopefully that adds up to the 33 that we saw at the top. What are those things that are out of date? And then nothing in the cloud. There's no cloud components for this service, but there's no end of life, so there's no end of life information. And then the variables, being able to avoid the huge spreadsheet reports of 49,999 rows of green and 1 red row at the very bottom that you never get to in those weekly conversations. Being able to present a contextual list of what are the things I should be interested in. So here we're just showing this is the component parts of your service. It's made up primarily of virtual machines. You have some servers in there. You have some software, some network devices, all included in your service. What are they? Well, glad you asked. So if I click on this software instance, what are those pieces of software? The table on the right dynamically updates. So we click on something in the pie chart that we care about, we can get that list. You can then use the good old Grafana options to export, save, whatever you may want to do, but it's the targeting of those tables. What are the servers that are involved? Oh, glad you asked. So it's being able to, again, dynamically present information on one screen without jumping around between dashboards or massive reports of black and white. And then a bit more static information. Here's the raw list of what we know about those end of support items. Here's everything. And the things that we've seen changing. Here's everything. And in this example, we've got some hardware changes, some compute allocations changing, some versions changing. Here's the list. And the very binary colors of red and green, so good and bad. So that's the main dashboard that we have looked at from a service context perspective. This all works because we focus on adoption. We focus on getting data into the tooling. Do we scan everything? Do we have everything monitored? Do we have everything cleanly in ITSM? Before we even go to the service layer, this is only as good as your bedrock foundation of have you got everything in the tooling, whether that's monitoring only, discovery with lots of attributes and data requirements in ITSM. This doesn't work without that baseline. So our next dashboard, and this is where I'm going to tag team with Rod a little bit, is something we call adoption. So you turn on BMC Helix, whether that's with pure discovery, with AIOps, with ITSM, you want to know how quickly can we get to a baseline of where we think we've done everything we thought we had. We want to roll out. We think we have some stuff in our environment. We think we know, is it all in tooling? So this dashboard is very much around that first sort of 30 days, 90 days of adopting the products, sorry. And along the header line, we've got some static values. So when you start moving from spreadsheets or asset lists into tooling, you have an idea of what you have in your environment. You know, for instance, that, or you believe that you have about 1,000 servers and network devices on premise. So we put that number in. I'll skip some of the numbers, but broadly, we think we have 4 cloud providers. We think we have some storage. We think we have some virtualization with clusters and vCenters. We think we have 100 business services. And I do apologize. There was a comment made yesterday that this number is bigger than those numbers. It's because we have 100 here. If I change that, hopefully that looks a bit better. We think that we are going to monitor about 1,500 things, whether that's servers, networks, APIs, ingestion, whatever that may be. We think we're going to monitor about 1,500 things. And so that's where we start. We start with what we think we know of our environment. And these dials across the page, they are reflective of that. So they're looking into discovery and they're saying, right, you said you had 1,000 things across the infrastructure for on-premise networks and servers. We've scanned about 776 of them, so 77%. So it helps us understand. We thought we had 1,000. We've scanned 77. Tomorrow, hopefully, that's 78%. So it allows us to see progress and understand and be honest with ourselves. What do we think we have? What do we see? What does the tooling do? How do we get that to 100%? And across the page, we have topology, i.e., if we are not using full discovery, we're maybe using intelligent integrations to bring data in from other tooling. They can be counted separately. We think we've got about 90% of of the 250. You may figure out actually we've only got 240 in the other tooling to get that number more accurate. And so these numbers can be changed on a whim. We can change those as we get better visibility. Actually, we only have 800 devices in our environment, and those numbers start to improve. The services is a slight left field here. These are talking to business services or technical services or business applications. We think there are 110 things in our environment that we want to collate and curate and have contextual awareness of. That number again can be changed up and down. How are we doing with our service modeling? So the next, again, that's header information. That's the business understanding. We have deployed BMC Helix. How are we getting on with bedding it in? How do we then break down that information? So one of the things that we do see is still these individual perspectives on, well, I'm only interested in the discovery stuff, or I'm only interested in operations. I'm only interested in ITSM and many other teams. So going into a bit more detail, what does that 96.7 mean? Well, if we take all those numbers across the top that we put in, we then break it down a little bit more and we go back to the individual numbers. So in our data center, we think we've got about 96% of the number covered. It's very much box counting at this point, by the way, just to say we've seen 800 things, or we haven't seen 800 things yet. Cloud, we chose blue as overachieving. So when we've rolled out Discovery for cloud, we've actually seen 5 cloud providers, 2 OpenStack instances. So the honesty comes back through again there. With cloud, you may say, well, we have OpenStack, we have GCP, we have Azure, but we may not be honest to understand how many instances we have of those things. So in this example, we've seen an extra one. So great job for Discovery there. Storage, we've only scanned 8 out of 10 of them. Containers, you said you had 2,000. We've seen 1,400 of them. And virtualization, so this is Kubernetes clusters and vCenter. We've had a couple of customers who wanted to bring those two together as a count. So we've only seen half of them. And we can dig into the data and see, oh, yes, we've seen 2 vCenters and 5 clusters, but we have an awareness of which ones we're not doing there. And we have an awareness that if we're not scanning vCenters, we're not seeing virtual machines. If we're not seeing clusters, we're not seeing containers, which brings those two end numbers a bit closer together. You can see a cause and effect. And then digging into a bit of detail, and I won't go into everything on this page, but what have I got? What have I got in my environment? So I've got some servers, I've got some networks, I've got some appliances, I've got some storage, hopefully somewhere in the list. Don't see any storage. What are those things? Again, very much like the previous dashboard, you click on something with a bit of luck, here's the list here. And again, it's to be able to give the right list to the right teams. So operations, I don't care about Linux, don't give them the Linux list. Windows, I don't care about Unix, don't give them the Unix list. So it's the ability to give the right information to the right teams with a bit of luck at the right time. And then from an adoption perspective, we've got, okay, so we're bringing our discovery numbers up. Are we doing service modeling? Are we working towards that 100 or 110? And this shows you've modeled, created 81 services. They've been published and pushed to the CMDB. Hopefully all those ITSM capabilities additions have been added on. How did we do them? A bit of a breakdown to help you understand as you go forward. Are we using the blueprints capability? Are we using Start Anywhere, which is the difference between very much a controlled understanding of how we build our services, so we know the rules, so we can use blueprints, or every service is unique and we don't know how they're built, so we use the visualizations and just draw a ring around stuff. And that's Start Anywhere and blueprints. We're also seeing a lot of interest in creating those services from outside, so using API calls, using TPL to create services. In this environment, none of those have been used, but we are seeing that from some customers. And then custom blueprints. So you have out the box, we have a library, a growing library of templates out the box, use tags. Here's some storage started, just some web service started, some wonderful out the box blueprints, but you may want to move forward with that and start creating your own blueprints. So it's just an awareness of how you're using the tooling. And then just a few observations. You've got some empty services. Can we understand that? Maybe someone has gone into the system and created a service, added no content, not so good. Maybe you've gone into the UI and you've actually created multiple layers, including the logical services above, which all map over to the CMDB. That's a good thing. That's a good thing. There are no component parts of 9 services other than other services. And that's a great opportunity we have with Discovery and Blueprints UI, is to create that logical layering as well as the actual services that have content in. And where are they? Mostly on-premise still. So as if you're maybe doing a cloud migration, you can see those numbers, the seesaw balancing. And then things that may be of interest to know about. You've got some end-of-life stuff running in 58 of those services. So out of 81, you're not in a great place for running on end-of-life technologies. Discovery has that awareness that pushes over to the CMDB. So all of that data is available, calling it out on screen. CMDB effective. This is where you've maybe created services in a non-standard way. Maybe those empty services are pure empty. And so 9 out of 10 of those services will never really get pushed to the CMDB because there's no content to trigger the bottom layer push. And just a bit of interest to help you understand what we thought we were doing is maybe not working with the tooling in the best way. And then this is what Discovery knows about your environment to help you do more with your investments. So we scanned some vCenters. Sorry, these numbers here are they're not terrible. They're just things that help you understand where Discovery can offer you more. It can offer you that it's aware of more stuff in your environment. It can offer you that there are maybe access or permission requirements on some of your devices. That means we're not pulling the right amount of data that you need to do relationships or end of life understanding or whatever those outcomes may be. Today's outcome being obsolescence. The red's very much called some of that information out. But if I just took the amber and the red quickly, the amber is as Discovery scans things, it sees other things, or it gains an awareness of other things that it may be talking to, or content that is not fully scanned. The 2,500 is we've scanned vCenters, we've seen 2,500 virtual machines, but those 2,500 virtual machines we've not fully scanned. So they're the exclusions. The way Discovery likes to work is maybe multi-angles. So it will do the API scan of vCenter, get an awareness of 10,000 virtual machines. You'll scan 10,000 IP addresses. It will see 7,500 successfully. 2,500 of those virtual machines it has not been able to log into. You may be interested to get the additional data by scanning those IPs. It would also influence that number up the top of 1,000. So you might want to revise that number because we think you've got more than you actually thought you had on your environments. When Discovery sees things and scans things, it says who you're talking to, what other IPs are you communicating with? 500 of them, it cannot correlate to anything it knows about. Maybe get those 500 IP addresses added to the scans. I'll skip across the page now. So data quality is something that we're seeing of interest, and it's a huge driver to the outcomes. We can't tell you something's out of date or end of life if we don't know the version of something, or we don't know the make and model of something. If we don't know the operating system, if we don't know the software versions, there is no correlation to understand that version of Apache is end of support, that one's totally in support. So it's a call out to help. If these are things that are limiting the best out of Discovery. At that point, I'm going to call out that there was one other piece of interest. And this was very much like Discovery. Are we scanning everything? Some of our operations teams wanted to know, have I got everything in tooling? A bit more breakdown than just a number. What am I monitoring the most of? And in this example, it's mostly servers. We've got a few virtual machines, and then we've got some other components. But we're not monitoring so many of our Docker containers. We've got 2,000 of them, we think. Why have we not got so many in there? Maybe we haven't added Kubernetes clusters into monitoring as yet. We haven't rolled out that knowledge module for monitoring. And so the numbers here, these are the lists. This is all the good. This is the things that we're doing on. We then look at what KMs have you got deployed. So you looking at BHOM and saying, where are you deploying these KMs the most? And in this example, Netrio is the biggest number. But if we go to some of the lower numbers, we've got virtual machine monitoring. Well, actually, we should have that up at about 2,000, not 48. So it's understanding how we can see our rollout, our adoption of monitoring, just as we do with Discovery and with ITSM. And that's not negating any of the other capabilities in Helix. These are the ones that some of our customers are looking at the most at the moment, the consistency. I will come back. Please throw the question into the chat. Happy to come back to the dashboards. Sorry, Sunil, my control of Zoom gets a bit back and forth. So please feel free to put the question in the Q&A. That's where I'm, as far as I'm going to go from my talking. I'm going to hand over to Rod to talk about the last component in this dashboard, which is ITSM. Are we making the best use of ITSM? And at which point I will put myself on mute, hand over to Rod when he says yes. I will continue to drive, so please forgive any clunkiness.
Thanks, Matt. I'm ready. Okay, so my role in customer success is trying to make sure that we use the ITSM toolset as well as we can to get some value out of it. That's my role. So rather than be in the dark about what features we're using and how the adoption is moving along, I thought I'd build some dashboards to help. So this is a little snippet of a larger dashboard just to show you what we're doing. But if you look across the top, you can see an old-fashioned LED screen just giving you some scores for various aspects of ITSM tooling around asset management and config management. So these scores are designed to be fairly stable in that as we add features, they'll still fit into these categories. And the numbering sort of between 0 and 3. You can see at the top, we've got obsolescence and lifecycle management. We've got a score of 2. So we're doing okay in this instance around that, but maybe not so good with integration. Doing all right with relationships, probably because we've got Discovery feeding us data and creating lots of relationships between things. The next chart there is really showing you, if we change this from last 30 days, Matt, to a bit longer, we might be able to get a more full picture of what's going on. So maybe a year or 6 months. You'll see that as soon as you change anything in dashboards, it should refresh anything that's dependent given time. So your score's gone up. It's looking at ticket data and that sort of thing to work out what your score is. So over a longer time frame, you're using more features. So that's designed to sort of show progress. Here, if you hover over the asset creation by month, you can see that we've got various sort of counts for assets and their related sort of records within ITSM. So you can kind of see if you're making progress on maybe you didn't have a lot of relationships, now you're getting a lot more ticket associations to other modules within ITSM. You can sort of see your progress there. People relationships as well. That's when we get onto the obsolescence, you'll see that the people relationships are very important. It's really important in ITSM to know who's looking after who's supporting a service or a CI. It's also very good to know who is responsible for keeping something current, not obsolete. So we use people relationships for that. So knowing how many you've got and whether you're moving forward is good. The next piece here is we're looking at the classes within the CMDB. If you scroll down to the next visualization. What I try to do here is just make sure that you're categorizing your CIs properly. We've got things split into just hardware, software, no category. So if you click on no category, you can see, oh yeah, it's only people that have not categorized. You've got some network ports that maybe need to be categorized better, but maybe they're just generic. You don't need to worry. So it just gives you a picture of how well you're understanding your infrastructure and where there's work to be done. It seems, I think, because you've got Discovery hooked up to this and it's populating all those product names and versions. And Matt and I have been doing a bit of work on improving that interface so that you can now trust the Discovery a bit better around making sure they have a manufacturer and a product name wherever possible. So this is, I'm pretty happy with the way that's going there. If you unclick on no category there, you can kind of see that there's a lot of categorization there. Just further down, we've got some pies. On the right, you can sort of see, if in terms of people relationships, where are they? Yeah, you've got a lot of support groups supported by relationships. You've got individual people approvers, and you've got support group owned by. So you can sort of see how you're using those features. And you can, on the left, you can see how you're managing your asset lifecycle. So it looks like there's a fairly full coverage of all the statuses, although, one on loan, one disposed, one returned to vendor. It doesn't look like you're really using those statuses. So you're just using the basic statuses here. On the right, configuration item management. So that's one of the sort of use cases or processes within asset management, and there's some metrics that I'm trying to assess how well you're using the tool. So how many classes are you using? How many of your assets have been categorized? And that's a very good rate of 100% there. And assets with a product, manufacturer, and version. Only 30% have a version. I mean, there's a lot of things where we don't really care about the version. So that's probably not a bad thing. You're getting an orange score, which is not too bad. So all the scores are color coded. So green is good, red is bad. Shall we go into obsolescence now and look at the process of obsolescence management? Okay, so we've done another dashboard. I worked with a customer that was very excited about the fact that Discovery is giving them really updated end of life and end of support dates for all their products, and they wanted to extend that to everything and make sure that process is nailed down. So we've built a dashboard for them that will help support that process. So right across the top, you can see you can filter it by portfolio. Yep. So the idea is that depending on what team you're in, you may want to view your particular CIs that you care about. You won't really care if you're working on servers and OSs. You don't really care about laptops or corporate software. You're just worried about what you're worrying about. So that drop down on portfolio will give you that sort of slice of the data that you care about. We've got numbers across the top, sort of categorizing assets. This particular team looks after 665 assets, of which 552 are out of date. That probably shows how old our test data is. So there's a bit of work to be done there with keeping your OSs and CIs up to date. What we're trying to do is support a process here. So you'll see there's 7 scheduled and one's failed. We'll move into that in a minute. But the idea is to try and, if you do have assets that are out of date, that you may want to use ITSM to plan to have them remediated. So if you look at the bar chart, you can see that we categorize based on looking at the end of life information. Large amounts of it have come from Discovery. You can see that there's 560 assets in total that have ended support. That includes 7 scheduled and 1 failed. We've also got some that are supported, but they're end of life. So something that's, it's still in support, but it's no longer being updated. So that they're obviously a risk as well. So it's good to sort of have them separated. You may want to upgrade them sooner rather than later. You've got some on extended support, and only 23 are fully supported. The time series on the right is meant to show you over time how when you've got things coming up for out of support and what's happened in the past as well. So that'll show you the actual counts of assets that expire on a particular date. You may want to plan, that if there's a version of Windows or something critical that's ending support, you may need to be aware that there's a big hit coming in so many years or whatever, and do something about it in advance. If you're an organization where it takes a while and a lot of resources to upgrade something. Now, here's a new feature that I've only learned about recently in dashboards, is this visualization called Canvas. So here you can actually put your numbers, your real life numbers, into a graphic and drag and drop sort of items, and make it kind of dynamic as well. You can even animate it. But certainly in this case, I've just gone for a simple sort of flow chart showing you the asset remediation process, and those numbers will change if you change the filter at the top. They're all dynamic. They'll change based on actions within ITSM. So at the moment, we've got 83% of the assets that you manage are needing to be remediated. And at the moment, we've only got 1.25% scheduled, and 0.15% that were scheduled, but that change is now completed, and Discovery has not found that the version is now current. It's still out of date, so there's something's gone wrong there. we color code that green because that's a very low number. If that number went higher, then it would be something to worry about. On the right, you may worry about 0.15 even. On the right, we've got assets within support or extended support, 15.8%. So it's sunny if they're in support. And then over on the right, we've got another figure, which is assets without end of support. The server team's doing all right. They've got all their assets, I guess, because they're all versions of Windows, and they're well known when they expire. They've got coverage, so they're managing them quite well. So in detail, if you scroll down, you can see the process in detail. So we've got a list of those 552 that need to be upgraded. We've now got a list of those. We also, in dashboards, you can have a cross launch into ITSM or anything you like. So if we wanted to move those into and attach it to a change request, it would be quite easy. So let's see, down the bottom right there, you've got remediation change requests. So we've set up a couple of change requests for the purposes of scheduling an upgrade. Hopefully you're going to do a whole bunch at once, so you don't need one change request per asset. So what you can do is, how about we see if we can change some numbers, Matt? Shall we click on an asset that needs remediation and see if we can move it onto a change and see how that works?
I will call out. You'll have to drive me on ITSM.
Yeah,
absolutely.
You're as comfortable in ITSM as I am in Discovery, I think. Not too bad. Okay. Yeah, click on any of them. They're all fine. Okay, so we're now into Smart IT. Takes a few seconds. You can see the URL up the top. It's using the instance ID. You can build your own dashboards to do cross-launch. All right, so this is a Windows Server 2003. That's pretty old. I think we need to upgrade that one. So how about we relate it to a change and add it to the list? You can do it from the change itself and add a whole bunch of CIs in bulk. But here we're trying to address this particular one. So if you go click the relate existing item option down the bottom left of your screen, Matt, next to the plus. Yeah, and just the text itself, relate existing item. Yep. Now select infrastructure change. Okay, so if you type up the top end of life, you shouldn't need the %. I think it does it automatically, but okay, so they're the three changes. How about you put it in the one that's draft? That's the one we're building at the moment. So just click there, and down the bottom left, you'll need to pick the relationship type. So we're going to probably call this an upgrade. Upgraded by, yep, and then just hit save. So that'll attach it to the change. And how about we just close that screen and go back to our dashboard? Okay, and if we hit refresh, it was 552 to need to be remediated. Now it's 551, and there were 7 before on where remediation is scheduled. Yep. Now there's 8. If you go up to the process, you'll hopefully see a change. That number's gone up, I think. Yep, that number's gone down. So it's all dynamic, and you can sort of visualize your process here. You can see the arrows are showing that if something fails, it moves from scheduled to failed because the change is expired and completed and nothing's happened. Then you'll have to move it back to scheduled again and reattach it. So those ones are, almost the same as assets needing remediation. It's just they've been attempted. What else? Oh yeah. So when we embarked on this journey, we did find that the initial design of the end of life attributes were that they were on every single individual CI. And then we now have a new feature in ITSM that supports use of the product catalog for end of life and Discovery populating those end of life values. So in other words, if you know that Windows Server 2003 has end of life on a particular date, you can update the product catalog, and every instance now then knows that date. So you don't have to individually discover and rediscover those assets. And as well as that, the other sources of CIs will get the benefit of Discovery's, monthly updates with their TKU for end of life information. So it's like Matt has with his dashboards. I don't know who came up with it first, but I've got similarly, we show the detail when you click on a bit of pie. So we've got those end of life breakdowns. They are looking at all 4 of the attributes, and mostly these ones are looking at the product catalog values, right, which are more accurate because they update in bulk automatically. So here you've got we want to know which ones are now on extended support. We can just click on that yellow bit of pie, Matt. There's only 1%, so it should be a fairly short list. And that little panel to the right updates, and it says these are the ones on extended support. So that gives you a better view of the detail in your CMDB. Close that one up, and we'll go down to the next one. Okay, so yeah, I said before that we're using the product catalog a lot. What we found is, first of all, I found that that Discovery wasn't always populating the product catalog as well as I'd like. So we've been working together to improve that. Hopefully there'll be changes to Discovery to make it a little bit more friendly to ITSM than it has been. So here we can sort of see what actual products I'm looking after in my server team. And you can see here, mostly it's Windows Server 2008 that I'm responsible for. And you can see, the catalog entries and see where the end of support and end of life dates actually are. The next couple of visualizations are showing anywhere where there's inconsistencies. So we have CIs, individual CI fields for end of life. And this was trying to prize out where you might have had some information in the past on a particular CI's end of life, and it was inconsistent with the product catalog and with what's coming in now. So we're trying to make that nice and clean. The next, so you see that there's some inconsistencies. There'll be reasons for that. So they may not be getting discovered now or whatever, and there's no entry in there. The next one, we initially started with Discovery assets that were not in the catalog, but we've got rid of all those. We use the feature to trust Discovery's products and models and versions and so on, and update the product catalog on the import. And so now that process has been successful and there's no errors, so therefore this chart doesn't really need to be used anymore. So yeah, that's this dashboard explained, I'm pretty sure. Shall we go up to the top and show what happens if you move it to portfolio all and just see those values refreshing? Can't see a lot there, can you? Okay. Didn't work the first time. All right. It took a little while to refresh, I think. That's the reason. Unfortunately, there's some heavy queries running here. Try and make it faster later. So yeah, you've got numbers. We've got 8 scheduled. We started off with 7. Maybe to show the close to end of support days. So one other feature we've got with that is the ability to define what is close to end of support. So you can put CIs on the list of things to do prior to their expiry and give yourself some time. So I've suggested some of these values. So if you move it to 0, then you'll see there's nothing, that turns the feature off and you don't care. Everything has to be supported before it goes on the list. If you move it up to a very high number, hopefully that number will go up. Yeah, and there's 65 in your kit that are expiring in the next 3 years or 2.5 years. Yeah, if you scroll down slightly to the process, yeah, those numbers have changed, I think, from when we only had the OSs. Okay. How are we going here? Do we have questions, or do we have to have time for questions, Sam? Or shall we?
We do have a few questions actually, and then I would like to go back to the final few slides. But let me just unmute everyone so they can speak to us live. And the couple of questions that we do have in here is from Ankit Sharma. He was asking if you can show how to create these dashboards. I'm not sure if it was ones earlier, so let me just see if I can get hold of him and see if he can come off mute. Ankit, can you hear us? Do you want to come off mute? I don't know if it was specific dashboards that you wanted the team to share or show.
We'll go with share.
Mm-hmm.
While we're waiting,
Mm-hmm.
these are dashboards that we're going to make available on our GitHub.
Hello.
Hi,
Hello.
Ankit. Hello.
Yeah. So the very basic one, I mean, the one you were showing in the first slides, even those how we can like this one, how we can create those dashboards. Where would we get the guides from, or is there any documentation to refer?
So a lot of these dashboards have been built in collaboration with customers who have some wonderful Grafana skilled people internally. And so what we've done is actually we're going to be making these available to you guys. So anyone who's interested, please let us know. We have a GitHub where we will be exporting these to, and you can rip them apart, understand how they work. Recommend Grafana training. I've learned so much just by working with those teams. And absolutely, we can maybe do a deep dive on another session of ripping one of these apart to see how hidden variables and variable data links and all the weird and wonderful cleverness of Grafana is available. From a first point of call, we're going to be making these available on GitHub, so please feel free to take a look and take them apart. They won't be read only; they will be completely available to you guys to see. Oh, they're using variables, or there's the JSON, and they're doing weird and wonderful things in there. Where's some dynamic stuff? Where's something that's dynamic? I think some of the detail here, like this one. These pie charts, when you click on something, they're using data links within the panels. So you can see in one of these, there's a data link and it updates some variables in the background. So the thing that you click on, it populates a variable in the background of the dashboard. The tables to the right are consuming those dashboards. So absolutely, we can export those for you guys to have a look at. And then if there's any interest in how we can do it, we can maybe run a bit of a session on how we approached it. But I do recommend, if you've got any Grafana skills in your teams, get those guys to see what they can do with the data.
Okay, and for the source of this data, is this taking it from the BMC CMDB, or it is taken from
Everything. So the incidents and changes, they're coming out of ITSM. There's discovery data, there's BHOM data, there's AIOps data. So anything that we have as a data source that you can query. So if you have your ITSM folks who know some wonderful queries like Rod's got in his dashboards, then you can literally just say data source service management, paste in the queries that you have.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Ankit. And I've just launched a poll actually, Matt, based on your questions. If people want the dashboards, if they want to put their email address in, because I don't want to assume everyone that's joined today wants everything. So if you can just fill it in, everybody, and let us know, and then I'll follow up with the team and we'll share you the dashboards. So if you can just fill that in, that would be great. Okay. Next question we had was from Sunil. Sunil, can you hear us? I think you were off mute earlier. Can you hear us? Hello. You had a question. Do you want to ask your question live to the team?
Yes. Thank you so much. First of all, it's a great session, and I have one quick. Thanks for giving me this opportunity to ask my question. See, while listening to these dashboards, assets management, monitoring, I have one query: whether we can discover, monitor, manage any OT devices or assets. in a particular manufacturing client setup, which are IP based, which are Windows based systems like other systems. Can they also be monitored in using the same tools that we have, Discovery, CMDB, etc.?
I'll take that one if you want, Rob.
You can, yes.
The fact that they're IP based and they are Windows based, then the answer is generically yes. On Windows you can open up remote PowerShell remoting, you can open up WMI, you can get to them on an IP scan. So the theory is yes. If they are desktop class, there is a setting in Discovery where you can empower Discovery to create records out of for desktop class devices. And so you can populate the data, which pushes over to the CMDB out of the box. So from a discovery perspective and an ITSM perspective, yes. From a monitoring perspective, depending on what you're using to monitor those, you could install Patrol, you could do remote monitoring using BHOM, you could use intelligent integrations if you have a different monitoring solution to ingest those events in. And we then take those events, we map them to something in Discovery, maybe they're in a service model, you discovered them, so you get the end of life data. So the short answer is yes. If we're talking more around IoT, the sort of non-IP based capabilities, then that would be a conversation to understand a bit more detail. We don't currently have IoT native in Discovery, but it's one that we are starting to hear from a few customers that are of interest, especially where they are maybe managing and monitoring the IoT.
Thank you. Thanks a lot for this one. One quick extension, because this being a manufacturing setup, which is so they have different systems. Some they are not sure whether they can actually utilize. They are from different heterogeneous environments and different vendors and different contracts and etc. So all of them can be integrated through IP and can be monitored. Am I right? As you mentioned.
Yes, absolutely. Intelligent integrations, that's exactly what that product is for, is to ingest information, whether that's event, metric, monitor, logs, all of that into the AIOps side. And then the topology data, you can either direct have those devices already scanned via Discovery, or you can ingest topology information via intelligent integrations into Discovery, where maybe all you have is a host name and a device type or something like that. As long as they can be correlated. So if it's the same source of the events as it is for the topology, then it makes it relatively simple. If you are scanning those devices separately to get the full Discovery power, if I talk about a server or a Linux device, then we correlate to say, well, that device is that event for that device goes to this thing in Discovery, which is part of this service model. So IoT is a direction. I'd love to have a conversation around what you've got and what you're looking for. But absolutely, we do the Wintel stuff, or the traditional OS based stuff that has a login. Then you can absolutely do that.
Would Helix Edge play a better role here in addition to the tools that we're talking about?
You've been around BMC Helix for a while. Absolutely, that's what Helix Edge was for. It was that ingestion of talking to Zigbee or I'm talking all home user stuff here, but all the brokers. Basically, it talks to all the brokers, ingests the data, whether that's event or inventory, and that's exactly what Edge is. And that's actually on the same repositories that we're going to host these logs dashboards on.
Okay, great. All right. Thank you.